Daf Yomi is Gittin Nun Hey Gittin 55, and we're going to start at the top of 55a. Hey, Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgana. Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgana testified. When did he testify? So he testified as part of the Mishnayos that are listed in Mesechas Edios, because there in Mesechas Edios they gathered all the halachos that were said on that day that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah became the Nasi, and they opened up the base medrash to everybody. This was the day that Rabbi Leah been removed, as the Gemara in Brachos tells us on Chav Zayin Amabez, and they gathered all the testimony that was to be believed. So Rabbi Yochanan Gudgada, by different gears of his name, some say that his name was Rabbi Nachunya ben Gudgada. He gathered that day and he testified about the following halachos, which are brought here because they have to do with tikkun olam. So he says about a chareshes sheisia via. If there's a woman who's a deaf mute, so she doesn't have agency, and her father married her off. So her father married her when she was a minor, and biblically speaking, a father has the right to marry somebody off. So we're going to say that biblically speaking, it's a marriage. She yotze beget. So nevertheless, even though she doesn't have agency because she's not of sound mind, nevertheless, the husband is able to divorce her with a get. And the chiddush is that the woman doesn't need agency to receive the get. Well, Katana Bas Yisrael, and also the case of a minor girl. In this case, we're talking about an orphan. She's married off by either her brother or her mother, which is a rabbinic marriage. Shanises the Kohen, and she marries a Kohen. Shelchelas betruma, she could eat truma, which biblically speaking, she'd have to be married to the Kohen in order to eat it. But we're saying that we're going to allow her. We're going to allow her to eat this truma. The imesa bala yorsha, and if she dies, her husband inherits her. Why does her husband inherit her? Because we're going to say that even though biblically speaking, her other relatives marry her, inherit her, the rabbis instituted that her husband will inherit her, so that people are not going to refrain from marrying her, because we wanted these orphan girls to get married so that people would be able to take care of them. So, and this is basically done, the commentaries say, through the principle of the Gemara and Yevamos says that it's able to be done through hefker, bez, and hefker. The court can declare money transfer to whoever they want. Va'al hamarish hagazul. Marish hagazul is a big beam. Somebody stole a big beam, shabano bira, that they use it to build a big house. Now the person catches the thief. Sheyito as damav. He doesn't get to tear down the building. He just gets to take the value of the beam back. And the reason is because otherwise the people would be very hard for them to do tshuva. If they have to tear down their whole house in order to do tshuva, it's going to make a very big challenge. And so therefore, we make takanas hashavim. We want to allow people to do tshuva. We make it easier. We don't make them return the exact beam, just the value of the beam. Well, chatas hagazua. Let's say you have a carbon chatas which is stolen. Show no do rabin, but the people don't know that it was stolen, and then they bring it as a carbon. It's going to serve as an atonement, and this is because this is what's called a tikkun hamizbeach. This is a fixing of the altar. So Amar Rava says, "May yidusu shel Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgada Amar la'edim." So we learn from this testimony of Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgada basically that the woman could be divorced without even having agency. That we learn another scenario, that let's say the husband would say to the witnesses, Ru get zesh, and he knows, saying, well, look at this divorce that I'm giving to her. But then he turns to her and he says, take this note that I owe you, meaning to say he doesn't tell her that it's a get, he just tells her it's a promissory note. This is going to be, she's going to be divorced. Didn't Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgada say she doesn't need agency? So Hachinami will be in Edaita. When she receives it, we don't care if she knows what she's getting. She doesn't need to. She doesn't need to know what she's getting. So the Gemara says, well, that's the obvious implication of Rav Yochanan ben Gudgada's statement. Pshita, isn't that obvious? Gemara says, no, it's not as obvious because now the Tema, you might have said, even the Amar Kanti Shtachov Zeh Bitoy Batli. Since he said, take this contract, take this shtar, Bitoy Batli, then we might have thought that he's thereby nullifying the get. Kamash one, he's not. Misa de Batli wa Edim have Amar Lehu. If he was really nullifying the witnesses, he would have said to them, and the reason why he's saying it like this is he's saying it's a promissory note when it's a get is only because he's very embarrassed. Then the Gemara says, Val Katana Bas Yisrael, and also we have a Katana who's the daughter of a regular Jew. We're going to allow her to eat from the truma, even though it's just a rabbinic marriage. Excuse me, Gemara says, but if she was a deaf mute and her father didn't marry her off, but she married herself off, then when she got older, then she cannot eat the truma. Why? Because from the fact that the Mishnah says that first the Mishnah was talking about a charashes, and then it leaves it, Rashi explains, it mentions a katana, a minor. We were from here that an adult deaf mute who marries, which is just a rabbinic marriage, that she cannot eat the truma as a result. So a charashes, an adult deaf mute, is not able to eat the truma if she marries to a kohen. Why? Mark explains, because we're concerned that maybe a kohen who's a cheresh, a male kohen who marries the female, a male cheresh kohen who marries the female chereshes will come to also give her truma. Meaning, say, if we're going to allow a regular kohen, a pikeach who marries a chereshes, then they're going to come and a male kohen who marries a male cheresh who marries a chereshes as an adult, he's also going to feed her the truma. And then the Gemara asks, so what's the problem with that? So what do we care? What's the problem with that? Katan ochel navelosu, meaning to say this chareshes, since she doesn't have agency, she's like a minor who's eating non-kosher. And there's a position in Yevamos that the court is not required to stop these people from eating non-kosher. So therefore, let her eat it. What do we care? So the Gemara says, we're concerned that maybe the cheresh, the deaf one will come to feed the pikeches, and so therefore she is of sound mind as an adult, and so therefore it's not a valid marriage; it's only a rabbinic marriage, and so therefore she can't eat the truma. And we might come to feed it if a cheresh can feed a chereshes, then maybe a cheresh can feed a pikeches, and that's not okay. So the Gemara says, "V'lecho b'truma d'Rabbanan." Well, it's a rabbinic marriage, so they should at least be allowed to eat the truma d'Rabbanan. If the cheresh marries the pikeches, if the deaf mute marries the woman who's of sound mind, they should be allowed. It's a rabbinic marriage, so she should be allowed to eat the truma d'Rabbanan. Gemara says, no, that we're also not going to allow gzera shema asi lachua b'truma d'oraisa. Maybe they'll come to eat the biblical truma. What's the rabbinic truma? So Rashi says anything other than dagma tirish v'yitzar, anything other than grain, wine, and oil is rabbinic truma, like fruits and vegetables. So then we say that if they steal the beam, they don't have to return the exact beam, just the value of the beam. Tanur Rabbanan. This is actually a dispute between Meisham and Basilo. Gazal Meirish, Ubano Babira. Let's say they steal a beam and then they build a house. So say Beishamai says Mikaka Ko Abira Kua. Beishamai says you destroy the whole house and you return it. Return the exact beam. Beisil says Engelal the main Marish Bava Mishum Dakonas Hashem. Beisil says no, this concept of our Mishnah, the Takonas Hashem, you only return the beam and not the value of the beam, not the actual beam. This is a concept of Takonas Hashem that we want to enable people to do teshuvah. We want to enable them to repent. And that's the whole concept here, that we want to allow the people to do teshuvah. And so therefore we go out of our way to allow them to do teshuvah. They have to do everything to help them do teshuvah. Let's say you have a stolen animal that if the community doesn't know about it, is going to be able to be a valid korban because of tikkun hamizbeach. The machukas, what's the concept here? Is it biblically speaking okay to bring such an animal, or biblically speaking not okay? Amar to Ula, so Ula says the Var Torah, that biblically speaking, if you steal the goat and then you bring it, beinoda beinoda, so biblically speaking, it's not valid. My time, yeyesh kedi ukani, because the concept is that just the fact that the person you stole from gave up hope from it, it doesn't mean that it became yours. Meaning, say you didn't acquire it, you'd still, of course, you still have to pay back the money to the person, no matter what. But the question is whether, in the meantime, that animal was technically speaking yours when you brought it as a korban. So the fact that this guy gave up hope from it doesn't mean that technically speaking it's yours. My time, what's the reasoning? What's the reason why they said that if you don't know about it, it's going to serve as an atonement? Because we don't want the Kohanim to be sad. And so therefore, if we're going to say that the people had no idea about it, and then they brought this as a korban, and now we're saying that the Kohanim can't eat it, the Kohanim will be sad. And then and they're not going to want to work in the temple. So Amrle Rabbanan, so Rabbanan said to Ula, but we say the reason why they can't do it is not because of Kohanim being sad, but because we want to fix the altar. So Amrle, no, keeping the Kohanim out saving. No, since the Kohanim are sad, Nimtza Mizbeach Patal, then the Mizbeach will be empty, and therefore we need to make a tikkun Mizbeach. So say if the community didn't know about it, they could bring the korban as they could bring the animal as a korban. It's valid sacrifice. Rabbi Yehuda says the opposite. Biblically speaking, even if they knew about it, if you bring the animal and you knew it was stolen, it's going to be a valid offering. My time of yesh kadikani, because technically speaking, it's a valid sacrifice. That because the person gave up hope on it, and so therefore, the person who stole it. It became his animal. He obviously owes the money back to the person, but it's his animal. It's a valid sacrifice. So why do they say that if the people knew about it, it's not a valid sacrifice? Because we don't want people to say, "Oh, look, the altar is eating stolen food." It's not a good look for the temple. So the Gemara says, "Bishlam Ula," makes sense according to Ula, says you don't really own the animal, and so therefore it's not a valid sacrifice. That's why the example that's given is of a sin offering, because that specifically the Kohanim would feel sad. El Rav Yehuda, but according to Rav Yehuda, says it's technically speaking a valid sacrifice. Then why do we say only by a chatas is it not good? Nami. Also, the ula also is not going to be a valid offering. So why do we say specifically the chatas is not a valid offering? So if the people know about it. So the Gemara says, Lomi by Kamar. Lomi by, it's meaning not only a chatas, not only an ula, but even a chatas. Lomi by ula the kol, not only an ula which is completely burnt on the altar, and people might come to say, "Oh, the altar is eating stolen sacrifices." We're on the top of Nunayim base. Even a korban chatas also. I feel chatas nami the v'damu back, because the only thing the altar is actually eating is the fats and the blood. V'ida kohanim achilei. And the rest, the Kohanim are eating. I feel hachi gazer. Nevertheless, in this case, also the rabbis say it's not a valid offering. Because we don't want people to say, "Oh, the altar is eating stolen food." So now the Gemara is going to try and prove, a challenge to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that biblically speaking, it's a valid offering. Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, it's telling us that a korban chatas that people know about, that was stolen, that people don't know about a stolen is valid because it's valid. But the Gemara, and because of a tikkun hamizbeach. Now, Bishlam Ula makes sense according to Ula, who says it's really not good, but we say it's okay because of we don't want the mizbeach to be empty. El Rav Yehuda, who says really it's good, but we say it's not good if people knew about it. If coming by the way, it should be the opposite. So I mean, technically speaking, it's good, but we're the ones to say it's not good. So hachinami kamer. That's how Rav Yehuda reads the Mishnah. Lo no da. If you don't know that it was stolen mechaperes, then the korban serves as an atonement. No da, but if people know about it, eina mechaperes, and it's not going to serve as an atonement. Tikkun hamizbeach, in order to repair the altar, in order to as a tikkun for the altar. so that people don't say it was stolen. Masiv Rava, so Rava challenges to Ganav v'hikdish. Let's say you stole the animal. Now we know if you steal a sheep or an ox, you pay and then you slaughter it or sell it, you pay 4 or 5 times the amount. But let's say you stole the sheep or the ox, and then you consecrated it. So now it's the temples. And then you slaughtered it, sold it. Then, since you stole it after it was the temples, you're only paying 4 or 5, you're only going to be paying double, but not 4 or 5 times the amount. Now, so therefore we see from here, Vitani Allah, and we learned about that. We learned from that Mishnah in Baba Kama. That what does it say about that Mishnah in Baba Kama? But bachutz ki agamna anushkar. So if you take that animal which you gave over to the temple and then you slaughtered it outside the temple, we're going to say you're liable for kares, for slaughtering a sacred animal outside the temple. V'amris ish v'amris yesh kadi lo kani. And if you're going to say like that you haven't really acquired it when the person gave up hope, then kares mayavidite, then it's not the temples because it still belongs to the person who stole it. So why are you getting kares? Why are you getting this divine penalty for slaughtering outside the temple? Kares then kares mayavidite. So the Gemara answers, Amar Shizvi kares midivrayim. He says this is rabbinic kares. That's what you're getting. Yeah, it's not biblical kares. So when Rav Shizvi said this, they laughed at him. Kares midivrayim miika. He said, "Is there even such a thing as rabbinic kares?" Amar Rava. So they laughed at him. So Rava says, "Gav Rava Amar Milsa lo tachuk olay." If a great man says something, you don't laugh at him. You try to understand what he's saying. Beautiful expression. Kares al yedei divrayin, meaning to say kares. It's a kares al yedei divrayin basolo, that it came to him as a result of the rabbinic ruling, meaning say the rabbis ruled that the animal became the temples, and once the rabbis ruled the animals became the temples, then as a result of it, he's going to get kares because he slaughtered it outside the temple. So the Gemara says, the rabbis put it in his domain, so he's going to be liable for it. So therefore, Rabbi says, Rabbi says, this was my question. Says when the rabbis said it's his, did they say it's his going retroactively? Meaning to say, when the rabbis say that it was his and he was able to be mekadosh, he was able to sanctify it, is that from the moment he stole it, or only from the moment he consecrated did it become the temples? So the Gemara says, well, why do we care? Meaning the shearings in between when he stole it and the offspring before he gave it to the temple, was that his or is that the temple's? So the Gemara says, what would be the no, it's logical to assume that it was only from the moment that he consecrated. We say at that point it was just a second before it became the temples, and so therefore the shearings and the offspring do not belong to him. So we don't want another concept, a beautiful concept. We don't want the sinner to somehow benefit. They have such a law, and I don't think it's a federal law, but they have laws. I don't know if it's a federal law or not. There's some laws in America that you're not allowed to write a book about your crime to make money. So we don't want a sinner to benefit from his sin. So Loaya Sikrikun Yehuda. So the law of Sikrikun did not exist in the land of Judah Baruge Malcha during the time where Rashi says of Titus, who was fighting a war against Judah and Jerusalem, that the non-Jews would kill the Jews. So by the way, why are we all of a sudden talking about this? Because we've been going through the concept of tikkun olam, of repairing the world, and we talked about takonas hashavim, and so therefore there's nothing that needs a greater tikkun than our lives after the destruction of the temple. And this is the chapter that's called Nizak and damages. There was no greater damage than the destruction of the temple. And so therefore we're going into this concept of what do we need to do in order to prepare a tikkun. So the law of a sikrikun, which the Mishnah is going to explain, that's a law of a non-Jewish murder and murder the Jewish people didn't apply during the time of the Arugei Milchama, during the time of the War of Titus. Josephus wrote a book called The Great War. But from the time where of the battle onward, after the battle, then we have the law of Sikrikun, and the Gemara is going to explain us that from that time on, if you bought something, if the Sikrikun bought something from the Jews, if the non-Jewish murderer bought something from the Jews, it wasn't considered a valid sale. Kate said, this is what the Mishnah tells us. If a person purchases something from the Sikrikun who had acquired it from the Jew, and then he says, okay, so the Sikrikun took the land from Reuven, and then Shimon buys it from the Sikrikun, and then he says, just to make sure, I'll go back and buy it again from Reuven. We're going to say it's not a valid sale because Reuven only sold it to him because he had no choice, because the Sikrikun already took it from him. And so to a similar law is lakach mi balabayis. Let's say you would purchase it from the balabayis, from the husband. He had the rights to the fruits of his wife's property. Let's say he sold his wife's property. The chazar v'lakach mina sikrukin. Excuse me, lakach. He said the opposite. I skipped on. Lakach mi balabayis. Let's say he first bought it. Shimon first bought the land from Reuven. The chazar v'lakach mina sikrikun, and then he goes back and buys it from the sikrikun. Then it would be valid because Reuven sold it first, so clearly it was a sale with willingly. But let's say a person buys it from the husband, and then and then he goes back and buys it from his wife. So basically, he buys the rights to the field that there was a bond on her ksuba, and he buys that field, and then she comes and sells her ksuba too. So that's nullified. We're going to say that there was too much implicit pressure on the woman to sell that sale. But Minaisha, let's say the woman sells her rights to the ksuba, and then he buys that field from the man. Then it's a valid sale because she can't claim that she only did this to make her husband happy because he asked the woman before he asked the man. Zo Mishnah Rishona. This was the initial Mishnah. Based in Shachareim, the later court said, no saying Labalam Ravia, that if you purchase it from these Sikrikun, these, even not during time of war, you give to the owners just an extra quarter, because an extra 1/4 the value, because the Chachamim established that the Sikrikun took they lowered the price by 1/4. So therefore, the assumption was that if you bought it from the Sikrikun, you have to give that value to the owner. Meaning to say, the Sikrikun must have sold it to you minus 1/4. The Sikrikun took the value; they took it for free. You got it from Sikrikun for a quarter less, so therefore you have to give that value to the Sikrikun. When do we say that if you purchase it from the Sikrikun, it's a valid sale? When the original owners don't have money to purchase it. Then they say that if a Jew buys it after from the Sikrikun, it's valid and he gives 1/4 extra to the original owners. But if the Sikrikun has money and they're interested to purchase it, they come before every man and they give back to the purchaser who bought it from the Sikrikun the value that he paid, and they get back their land. Rabbi Hoshev based in Vinamnu, Rabbi appointed a court, and they established and if the land had been with the Sikrikun for a year or 12 months, then the original owner lost his rights, and whoever wants to get it bought it. It was able to. But then you still have to give to the original owners the 1/4 discount that the Sikrikun had given you. So now the Gemara says, if you're saying that during the time of the battle of the war, the Sikrikun didn't exist, is it possible to say that the Sikrikun exists after the Arugei Milchama? So Amar Rav Yehuda lo danu ba'din Sikrikun, meaning to say that no, during the time of the Arugei Milchama, during the time of the war, then they didn't give in Judah the law of the Sikrikun. That is, somebody who purchases it from him, his sale is nullified, but rather the law, excuse me, the law of the Sikrikun was the law of somebody who bought it from anybody that it's valid. It's only after the battle, the war, that we say if you purchased it from Sikrikun, is it nullified? The Amar Rabbi Yasi, Shalosh Gezeros Gazro. But they said that there were 3 degrees. Gezerasa Kamaisa, called the initial decree of the Romans was whoever sees a Jew and doesn't kill him will be killed. Mitziasa, then the next decree was called the Katil Lesi Arbazuzi. Whoever kills either has to pay 4 zuz or he gets 4 zuz. Whatever. It's not clear. There's a dispute amongst the Rishonim, but the point is that that it was not a severe punishment. Pasrai said the last law was called the Katil with the Lu. Whoever kills a Jew will get killed. Hilkach Kamaisu Mitziasa in the first 2 stages, keeping the Katli, since the Romans were killing the Jews, Agav Unse Gamar Mikne. Because the Jew was real extenuating circumstances and he wants to save his life, therefore we're going to say during those periods, he was really giving it to the Sikrik in his land as a valid transaction. And so therefore the law is if somebody purchased it from the Sikrikin, it's like he bought it from the owners, and so therefore it's valid. However, Basaraisa, but in the last period, that under those circumstances, they're no longer killing the Jewish people, and then therefore the Jew really didn't intend to give it to the Sikrikin. He says, today I'll give it to him, tomorrow I'll take him to the court. So therefore, somebody buys it from the Sikrikin, then it's not a valid sale because it never really left the original owner's possession. And then the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, what does it mean when it says in the Proverbs, fortunate is the person who's always worried that his actions should not cause a disaster in the future, and somebody who makes his heart stiff, who's rigid, and he's not concerned about the future, will fall down as a result of the fact that he causes terrible things to himself. So the Gemara says this verse refers to these actions that happened to the Jewish people as a result of people who were short-sighted in their actions. What are the 3 things? Kamtzu, Bar Kamtza, Charav Yerushalayim. Because of Kamtza and Kamtza, Jerusalem was destroyed. Tarnagolta, Charav Tur Malka. The hen and the rooster, Tur Malka, was destroyed. Ashaka Derisbak, Charav Beitar. Because of the side of a chariot, Beitar was destroyed. And we're going to see this Agadata about the destruction of the temple starting in tomorrow's daf. Okay, everybody have a shkoyach. If anyone has any questions, happy to address.